Let's work on the Unit 1 review. So number 1, I'm going to begin by doing the distributive property. That's going to give me negative 8y plus 14. Bring down the left side. Now I've got variables on both sides, so I'm just going to choose to mess with the y's here. Let's see, I'm going to add 9y to both sides. That is going to give me 3 equals 1y plus 14, and we finish the problem by minusing 14 on both sides, and we get a final answer of negative 11. We're going to begin this one with the distributive property. That's negative 10 times negative 9, so that's positive 90. Bring that down. They're going to minus 90 on both sides. Gives me negative 80 equals negative 10k. Divide by negative 10. And I get 8. Alright, this one we have fractions. We need to recreate these fractions, but with common denominators. So hopefully you can agree that we can make the denominators on all these 10s, and we can do that by timesing the top and bottom of the fractions by the same thing. And this 1 right here, I'm going to turn that into a fraction as well, like 1 over 1. Okay, so that gives me a 12 up here. Don't forget the negative. There's a 10, and then a 5, and I'll put the x up there as well. All right, so the point is now we have a common denominator across the bottom, which means only the top needs to be solved. So I'm going to go negative 12 equals 10 minus 5x, and I'm going to minus 10 on both sides. That's going to give me negative 22 equals negative 5x. I go over here. We divide both sides by negative 5. And that's going to give you a fraction that you don't like, but it's 22 over 5 is the final answer there. That'd come out to be, what, 4.4, I think? We're done. All right, this one, we have variables on both sides. I'm going to choose to add 4x to both sides. That gives me 5x plus 2 equals 17, minus 2 on both sides, and that gives me 5x equals 15. Divide by 5, and we get x equals 3. All right, this one is a quadratic equation. It's going to require factoring. I need to get it, because it's got the x squared, it makes sense to get it equal to 0. That's just our basic step on that. So I'm going to minus 3 on both sides. That's going to give me x squared minus 8x plus 7 equals 0. And now it's ready to factor. This is where we're looking for two numbers that multiply to make the 7 in the back that add up to be the negative 8 in the middle. So those numbers are negative 7 and negative 1. Now each of these gets set equal to 0. Alright, so we're asking ourselves what number minus 7 is going to equal 0. That answer is 7. We also do what number minus 1 gives you 0. That number is 1. And that's the two answers to the problem. Alright, so this one we need to use the quadratic formula on, but we need to get it equal to 0 first, so I'm going to do a minus 4 on both sides. That's going to give me, that gives me x squared minus 6x minus 4 equals 0. Notice that I didn't actually do any subtraction right there, I just kind of wrote them separate. So that means my a number is 1, my b number is negative 6, and my c number is negative 4. So here I go using the quadratic formula. Opposite of b would be positive 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus minus 4 times 1 times negative 4 all over 2 times a, which would be 2 times 1, so that's just going to be a 2 down there. So now you need to grab a calculator and figure out the inside of the square roots. Negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16, so 36 plus 16 is what, 52? So that's 6 plus or minus the square root of 52 all over 2. We can simplify the square root. Square root of 52 is really 4 times 13, which is 2 square root 13. So here we are at 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 13 all over 2, and now I can shrink by 2, and that gives me a final answer of 3 plus or minus the square root of 13, because those cancel out. And I'm done right there. X equals. Alright, so number 7, this is already factored, so we're going to take advantage that it's set equal to 0. We set both parts equal to 0, and we solve each one. So if I add 3 to both sides, it gives me 5x equals 3, and then I divide by 5, and I get x equals 3/5. It's a fraction, it's okay. Over here I do x plus 1 equals 0, minus 1 on both sides, and I get x equals negative 1. That's my other answer. Okay, so this one we are going to factor into double parentheses. The number x squared comes from x and x, and 100 comes from 10 and 10. And this is the part you got to remember. It's a plus sign and a minus sign. The idea there is that this times this gives you negative 100, but they add up to be 0, which is why there's no number in the middle. We now set both of those parts equal to 0. So what number plus 10 gives you 0? That's obviously negative 10. And over here, what number minus 10 gives you 0? That number is 10 as well. So plus or minus 10 is the answer to that problem. Alright, this one we need to solve using square roots, but before we do any square rooting, we gotta get the parentheses by itself. So I add minus 8 from both sides. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and that gives me my parentheses now by themselves. And darn it. Now I can square root both sides, and let's be careful here. This is going to give me 3x minus 12 equals 6, but you also have to solve it as 3x minus 12 equals negative 6. Because when you square root 36, we call that plus or minus. So over here I would add 12 to both sides, and that gives me 3x is equal to 18, so x is equal to 6, sorry I'm out of space. Over here you add 12 to both sides also, but because it's a negative 6 over there, you get a different answer. So that's going to give me 3x equals positive 6, and so x is equal to 2 is my other answer. So two answers are 6 and 2. Okay, so again, this is another square root problem. I minus 8 on both sides. That gives me 2x squared equals 32. I now divide by 2, and I get x squared is equal to 16. When I go to square root the x squared, that gives me just x. When you square root the 16, we're going to say that's plus or minus 4. The idea there being that 4 times 4 is 16, and also negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Go to your next video now to get the next set of problems.